What is an effective way to expand your storage on your home server? Presenting the mini PC server that's going to give you cheap storage, server functionalities, fast transfers, and it's even going to repurpose your old hardware. Let's get started. Now, when I say cost-effective storage options, you probably thought about a dedicated hard disk drive enclosure. There are some really good options, and they have really cool features like USB-C, gigabit transfer speeds, and even fan cooling. What if you wanted more? Things like 10 gigabit Ethernet networking, 500 megabytes per second read or write speed, RAID 5 for redundancy, maybe less than 25 watts power use. To give us the ultimate mini PC, and it all starts with a defective NAS. That's right, we're searching for a NAS that is broken. I know it makes no sense, but trust me on this, it'll become clear very shortly. Now, search terms are paramount on this process. I started with things like faulty 4-bay NAS and eventually landed on 4 parts 4-bay NAS is the optimal search terms. In fact, this particular NAS right here, the SmartStor NS4300N, is the exact NAS I use for this process. Okay, so why do we need a defective NAS? How does that help us build more storage into our home server? Well, it's actually pretty well priced, $38 for this one. This is it, the SmartStor NS4300N. As you can tell, we must find a NAS that has at least 4 storage bays so we can find a way to adapt it to give us more storage within our system. Now, some of these options online may not have the storage trays, so make sure to find one with storage trays for optimal application. Now, this is the particular unit that I picked up. It dates back to 2007, and by modern standards, it's kind of slow. We have USB 2.0, PCIe 1.0, and SATA 2.0. Presenting the ultimate mini PC server. Check this thing out. We have, whoops, that wasn't meant to fall over, defective parts, so that's not good. Wait, the mini PC's not even mounted? Wait, there's no rear panel on this. Why are the cables sticking out? Wait, what's this? There's no hard drives in there. This looks like clickbait. Okay, I better back this up. Otherwise, you're going to be really confused on whether this is it. Presenting the mini PC server that will dominate all. It's going to have fast file transfers, including 5 terabytes of storage, and a RAID 5 configuration. There's going to be an APC UPS for uninterruptible power. Going to have a single 2.5 gigabit NIC, and eventually I'll upgrade to dual 10 gigabit. RACERRRZ Studios presents Light Power Action. This is the HP EliteDesk 800G3 mini PC, which is going to be connected up to an AI PoE switch, a port with 2 unmanaged ports. And we're going to connect up our 4-bay SmartStor NAS, but there's a bit of a twist. It's not really a NAS anymore. That's right, those are SSDs connected to our mini PC through USB cables. If you've got a keen eye, you may have noticed there's no side panel, there's no motherboard. So it literally is just a hard drive disk caddy or disk tray with USB cables routed in. And we have the APC Back UPS Pro 1200 VA. UPS for uninterruptible power. But for now, our attention shifts to this NAS. How do we get our NAS to look like this? Right now, I need to get you up to speed to help you get your NAS, store all your data. Let's launch right in. Now, what am I going to call this? I call it a Frankenstein mini server, FMS for short. Phase 1, we have to run through a few questions. How much power does a mini PC draw? How much power does the SSD draw, and how much power does a hard drive draw? Now, to answer these questions, we have to first measure our baseline power draw. In this case, we've measured somewhere around 8.7 to 16 watts of power draw, depending on the CPU load, naturally. Now, one more question I had. Oh, you may actually notice a lot of grass clippings in the background. That's purely just because I mowed the lawn before I came in to do some recording. Forgive that one. But to confirm this 2.5 gigabit NIC wasn't causing me some problems, I actually measured the power draw on that as well, and it seems a-okay, not drawing any power without anything connected. Now this is the real star of today's show, the USB to SATA connector. There are two types. One of them accepts external DC power, which can be quite handy. Step 2, let's measure our SSD power draw. How much power do they draw? Have you done a test to figure this out? Why is it important to know? Well, many PCs have a very limited amount of power, so it is helpful to check. Okay, switching our Frankenstein looking system on. The power draw there with one SSD connected is 16.7 watts, so pretty reasonable. What happens if we connect another SSD? Whoa, why did that sound so crunchy? Must be really cheap adapters. They do work though, so we'll trust the crunching as part of the normal initiation process. But there it is, 17.7 watts with two SSDs connected. We disconnect one, that should give us our number, and by my math, that's a 1 watt drop, which means if we want to connect 6 SSDs, that's only going to use 6 watts. Pretty good deal to get us our RAID 5 pool, 6 SSDs, 1 terabyte each. That's 5 terabytes of storage. Next one, presenting the SmartStor NS4300N NAS, 2007 release, PCIe 1, SATA 2.0, and it's a very limited system now. We'll quickly power it on just to show you what it looks like. Take note, there are 4 hard drive trays, and while we're here, why not measure the power baseline so we get some idea of how much power a NAS may normally pull. And we'll give it a chance to initialize. Old hardware is a little bit slow, but there it goes. And take note, this is all measured with a smart plug. Definitely a good investment. There's our reading, 28.2 watts, give or take. There are currently 2 hard drives mounted, one of which is a Western Digital Red NAS drive. The other is just a standard desktop hard drive, also from Western Digital. Now, if we remove them, we can quickly check power draw. So there it goes, 25.9 watts with only 1 desktop drive remaining, and with that one removed, a Western Digital green, we end up with 21.1 watts with the NAS completely empty. That's still a lot of power draw, but interesting, if we check the math, that's around 2.3 watts for the 1 terabyte NAS, and around 4.8 watts for the standard, this old hardware takes ages to depower. It's okay, we'll leave it for a few seconds, it'll sort itself out. But that is the last time, it's now officially e-waste. No, it's okay, we're gonna completely strip everything out of it, turn it into our storage bay on the cheap. Now the goal here is just to tear out every unnecessary component, so all we retain are those fundamental essentials. We'll call it step 5, a NAS teardown. Oh, check it out, there's a spare fan. You could totally recycle this in another system. Now this fan's probably quite old, so you may want to re-grease the bearings to maintain a good noise level. There's our motherboard, and we can see our power supply down the bottom. Now, truth be told, it's actually quite tricky to open this particular NAS up, and I even broke a pencil in the process. Had to switch over to some serious tools, the old flathead screwdriver. But why am I opening this up so carefully? Why don't I just break it open? Well, the intent here is to recycle those original side panels so we can actually have this looking half decent. In fact, people may not even notice that it's not a NAS. And there it is, we have our nice 4-tray NAS ready to go. Next step, I guess we'll look at the power supply. Well, it's there. It's a 200 watt power supply with a 90 watt dedicated channel there for 5 volt and 3.3 volt. Connections, we also have our backplane connector converting SATA 2.0 into PCIe. Now, you're probably thinking the same thing I was, which is, can this particular backplane be used in another system? I'm afraid I tried it and it failed. It failed to detect. That must mean it's paired only to this motherboard, which is a bit of a shame, but surely you can buy some of those backplanes on eBay or AliExpress. Check it out, I'm sure there's listings for those. Now I had a question, do these particular SATA adapters actually clear the rear ports? You'll notice there's a bit of metal in the way. I'm afraid not. That does mean fitting hard drives might be a challenge. But I had another brainwave. What if I break open the plastic shroud and just expose the limited little PCB? Surely then it would clear. We can connect it up really quickly. And sure enough, it does connect, but I'm really iffy on that. I think we'll have to take a reciprocating saw and cut out some extra space so we can fit it more effectively. That's not too shabby. Nice little PCB. It does look quite fragile though. Okay, now for removal of our hard drive, so we can repurpose this tray, and I presume that means we'll have to fit some SSDs shortly as well, so stay tuned for that. But for now, let's have a look at the fitment here. One last try. I've inverted the hard drive within the mount. Can we plug it in? That's actually looking feasible, but as I said, a little bit risky. You're going to have exposed metal potentially touching the power supply unless you remove that as well, which you could do. Now for the motherboard. We're not going to need it. Are you ready for some time travel? We're going back to the year 2007. This is a very interesting looking motherboard. Actually kind of impressive for the era because we have a dedicated SATA controller. And there's even a PCIe slot. Looks like a X8. Now very handy, but as I mentioned, the speed limit means it's completely redundant. We won't even look at it. Does this now leave us with the cheapest hard drive enclosure money can buy? Maybe. Check that out. It's actually looking pretty decent. Add in our mini PC and a whole bunch of USB cables. And surely this is it. This is the most optimal server. The Frankenstein mini server, FMS. If you don't think that's a good deal, give it a thumbs up. If you think that was a good concept, give the video a thumbs up. Now right now we know our NAS is probably going to use around 40 watts. My goal is 25 watts, so let's validate. Can we get close to that? Take the mini PC with a 10 gigabit Ethernet card. It's only using around 20 watts, but truth be told, that Ethernet connector did not seem to want to work. I connected it through a M.2 E key adapter, and there wasn't enough power, even with external DC power. Now, interesting side note, stay tuned for a future video where we look at the memory fans on the HP Z440. We're also going to look in more detail at this mini PC, and I have a little trick in store for future videos where we really get the system up and running to its peak performance, so stay tuned for that. And you may have seen a related video as well where we took two NVMe's, put them into a RAID 0 configuration for some insane speeds. So you may be interested in that as well, but that's a related video. For now, let's get back to fitting SSDs. Now you'll see them tucked away on the inside. We'll call this an SSD mounting guide. Everything you need to know for fitting your SSD to your NAS. Now, we start off with what is a rather fruit salad looking bunch of cables. The SATA to USB cable, and we're going to fit it to some SSDs. Now you're probably wondering, what SSDs have I selected? Well, these are AliExpress SSDs, the Golden Fur 1 terabyte, and I was so ecstatic at my midnight purchase that I bought 6 of them. Now you're probably thinking, this guy's crazy. Why has he bought 6 AliExpress SSDs when they're completely fake? Well, I guess I'm going to test that, and in fact I've broken one open so we can see what exactly is cooking inside these. Now, to my best deductions, there's one fast NAND flash chip, probably TLC, which operates at a pretty reasonable speed. Now the other 3 chips are a bit slower. The processor is actually half decent, so it should output pretty good speeds. Was it worth the money? I don't know, but if it isn't, you're sure to hear about it in the YouTube post, so stay tuned for that. This is our next very important contender. This is our hard drive adapter, which will allow us to connect 2 SSDs to one 3.5-inch bay. It's a pretty good deal. Very nice anodized metal construction here as well. Definitely approve of that. Gonna make this thing look really good. But for now, we need to get this absolute mess of wires and SSDs connected up, and you will notice there are 6 of those lying down. If you're wondering where the other one was earlier, I had to do some testing to see if those SSDs are any good. So far past the baseline scrutiny, there is actually 1 terabyte on each SSD. Now for the important part, all we have to do is throw some screws at the problem and boom, the hard drives are mounted. No, you probably want to see how to do this properly. Let's take these screws and see if we can mount them up. They're actually really straightforward. We've got 4 mounting locations scattered around each corner, 1 screw in each, and mounting that to our little bracket's really straightforward. One little catch on the bracket. Okay, well, as we get these installed, we should be able to connect, hopefully, 2 SSDs. It's a little tricky getting your screwdriver all lined up, but overall that's a fairly straightforward process. We'll skip through relatively quickly. Now you could probably get away with 2 screws on each of these if you're that way inclined. I think I went for all 4 in this application to get it nice and secure. Now once we have all of these mounted, I do have one question, which is that of clearance. By my eye, this actually looks slightly beefier than a normal 3.5-inch hard drive, which surely is going to mean issues of clearance. Would we be able to run 8 SSDs in a 4-bay NAS? I'm going to say no, and you'll see why very shortly. Maybe a little bit surprising, if anything. Now, if you're really dedicated, you probably would find a way to connect all of these up. But for now, let's see what it looks like once we mount these into our 3.5-inch tray. Now, fairly straightforward there as well. Another 4 screws. Becomes pretty tedious, actually. It's a whole lot of screws to mount. But let's do a quick test fit and see what it looks like. First one goes in. I'm not even going to bother screwing it in for now. Let's just have a look at it. And that's looking pretty reasonable. Easy. Definitely looks beefy, as you can tell, but I suspect with a little bit of cable management, we might be able to get all of these in without too much trouble. Okay, there goes the second one. That's looking exceptional. Check that out. Now, it is a little bit of a fiddle to get these to clear each other. So I would have loved to fit maybe another hard drive, maybe a large volume hard drive. But in this case, I think we're going to have to stick to the SSDs for the time being. Keep in mind, we still have that power supply mounted down the bottom. If you were really dedicated, you probably could remove that to gain some extra storage volume. I left it there for the weight effect, shall we say. But anyway, let's plug in these USB connectors because you want to see, do we even have enough USB ports? Well, it turns out this mini PC is really cool. It has 4 USB 3.0 ports on the rear I/O, and there's another 2 USB Type A connectors on the front panel, giving us a total of 6 USB Type A connectors, which is ideal for getting these things up and running. Now, there may be some speed differences between those ports, but theoretically it may not matter too much because SSDs have a very specific speed limit. And check it out, there's my camera there in case you're a photographer. Nikon D5600 takes amazing photos for the YouTube channel. Now for the moment of truth. Can our mini PC be reinserted into the original shell so it doesn't look so conspicuous and Frankenstein-like? As far as I can tell, I think it's possible. It took severe cable management skills. As you can tell, my cable management here is looking on point. The end result? I'm thinking that's looking pretty reasonable. You can let me know in the comments what your opinion is, but an FMS has been born. That's looking pretty decent. Now I will ask, am I the first to do this, or have you done this previously, or have you seen a video where someone's done it? Share in the comments if they have. As far as I know, this is the first. Now we have 6 SSDs, 1 terabyte, going into a RAID 5 pool, into a rather questionable looking NAS, with USB cables. Is that even viable? What am I going to load onto it? Well, it's going to run Proxmox, and it's going to run a whole bunch of VMs, but this is where I must leave you on a bit of a cliffhanger, because we're going to have to see that next time. Okay, you probably figured that was no way you could fit all of that in one video. That's crazy. It's going to be so long. So no, part 2, stay tuned. There'll be a second follow-up. Technically, this is, I don't know, I've lost count. Part 4, part 5. We've done so many of these now. Check out related videos. We've done heaps on this mini PC series so far. 2 different mini PCs as well. So stay tuned for that. Now, do I give you a little snippet? Future videos for the channel? You may have noticed the posts that I've made. We have a whole bunch of content coming out on the HP Z440. In fact, one of the videos is on thermal paste application methods, likely the biggest myth and debate in computer hardware is thermal application method. What do you use? Leave it in the comments. But I've done a scientific test. Starting with the question, what is the most optimal method? I've done it. I've got the data. I've got the answer. I want to share it now, but I can't. I have to hold it so you can see the result. It's probably not what you thought, and in fact, a lot of people might get really upset on this result. But I can't deny the result. The result is what the scientific data backs. So I'm going to go with it, get you to make your own judgments on that when I release that video very, very shortly. Stay tuned for that. I have the data. It's absolutely astounding how well this worked. But stay tuned for that. One final little detail. You should probably consider joining our Discord group, where we try and keep each other up to date on the latest and share any of our progress that we make in our own personal builds. You may want to check that out. Very, very handy. Links in the description. Now, if you are looking for any of the parts featured in the video today, definitely check out the video description where I've got all the affiliate links listed up to help you get your system up and running really quickly. But keep in mind they are affiliate links, so they will support the channel if you deem that worthy. And final note, take note, we also have a Reddit group where you could post up some of your builds or any questions that you may run into on this journey. Well done, you've made it through. I'm going to say see you. Stay tuned. I'll see you on the next video.